anything. I guess she never made it to school this morning. How old's your daughter? She's 10.
Is greater than, is greater than. She is 10. Is greater than, is greater than. Understood. Can you give me her name? Is greater than Jessica Ridgway. She was my anchor. Our family's absolute anchor, a devastated mother pleaded.
The bright voice of my little girl. She needs to come home.
And a father.
I try to stay positive about it, but
Is greater than I am fighting to keep hope alive, but the nightmare is suffocating. I just need to find my baby. Is greater than I locked the door behind her as she left, never knowing that would be the end. I am praying she walks right back in. No parent should ever have to endure this living hell. Is greater than. A tactical response unit swarms the area. Agents tore through the residence, meticulously searching the property for roughly 2 grueling hours. They vanished from the scene shortly after, having stormed the property barely 10 minutes after the family departed. Federal agents remained on high alert, snapping on latex gloves with chilling precision. Boot covers slipped on. They breached the threshold, tearing through the interior and exterior for a single trace of the girl. Is greater than. As Wednesday night faded to black, authorities confirmed a grim discovery near a secluded park in Arvada, Colorado. Officials refused to declare it was the missing 10-year-old, yet inside sources heavily implied the worst-case scenario had materialized. It is greater than. Just 6 miles away from her doorstep, roadside crews stumbled upon a suspiciously dense duffel bag abandoned in the dirt. Is greater than. You were out there, essentially. Hunting is greater than. Yes, hunting is exactly how I would describe it. Is greater than Westminster, Colorado. Nestled perfectly between Denver and Boulder, it projects the ultimate illusion of suburban safety and domestic bliss. The waters of Stanley Lake glow under the setting sun, while endless winding pathways wrap around Big Dry Creek. Locals flock to the promenade for casual weeknight outings. It always felt protected, utterly predictable, and shielded from evil, which is why the ensuing horror shattered the community. On the brisk morning of October 5, 2012, a 10-year-old walked out and evaporated. This was not a midnight snatching, nor did it happen in some terrifying abandoned alleyway. She was taken in broad daylight, along her daily route, right inside a tight-knit community where neighbors watched out for each other. Her name was Jessica Ridgway. In mere hours, a paralyzing dread would choke the entire metropolitan area. The sinister truths detectives unearthed over the next 19 days will completely obliterate your sense of security. It forces you to wonder how a predator could strike so easily on what felt like a perfectly normal Tuesday. A sunny morning in an idyllic American town turned to tragedy. You are watching a true crime deep dive into Jessica's horrific case. Before plunging into the darkness, comment below with your location. If you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. We dissect twisted mysteries weekly, and you absolutely need to stay tuned for the disturbing cases coming up next. Born to Sarah and Jeremiah, Jessica had 2 devoted parents. Even though their romantic relationship ended, their fierce dedication to her never wavered. Jeremiah had relocated to Missouri. Navigating the brutal logistics of long-distance custody is rarely easy, bringing its own set of quiet struggles. Yet, everyone agreed the little girl maintained an unbreakable, loving bond with both her mother and her father. She was absolutely cherished. Her primary home was in Westminster, sharing a roof with her mom, grandmother, and her aunt. Anyone who crossed her path would instantly describe her as pure joy. Educators routinely noted her vibrant, glowing energy in the classroom. Constantly grinning, eager to participate, she was the rare kid who could spark a lifelong friendship from a simple hello. She did not just tolerate her classes, she possessed a ravenous appetite for learning and desperately wanted to be present. Beyond the schoolyard, she was an unstoppable force. She crafted elaborate dances, composed spontaneous melodies, and completely adored every kind of animal. Like any child, she had television obsessions, binging Victorious and Wizards of Waverly Place. When she set her sights on mastering a skill, her 10-year-old grit was downright terrifying. Her grandmother remembers the agonizing morning of October 5th, 2012, with a haunting clarity forged entirely by grief. Jessica's eyes opened at exactly 7:45. Just days prior, she had begged her mother for an alarm clock of her own. She craved independence, demanding to manage her own mornings. It was a classic Jessica move. After some television, she grabbed a snack and got dressed. The two of them then shared a quiet moment, methodically peeling an orange for her to pack in her lunch. Zipping up her winter jacket, she tossed a cheerful goodbye and stepped outside. The daily agenda was completely flawless. A brief 5-minute stroll to Chelsea Park, rendezvous with her friends at their normal hangout, and walk to class. A perfectly rehearsed routine. But the routine shattered when she never arrived. Her crew lingered until the final possible second before heading to campus to avoid detention. Initially, no one panicked. But for someone like Jessica, this deviation was a sickening red flag. 10-year-olds do not just evaporate into thin air. This one was flawlessly punctual, so when 10 o'clock ticked by with an empty desk, a deep, gnawing unease prompted her teachers to dial her mother's number. Sarah was dead on her feet after a grueling overnight graveyard shift, clocking in at 10 p.m. and grinding until 7 a.m. She watched Jessica head out the door into the morning light, collapsed into bed, and slipped into a deep sleep, completely dead to the ringing phone. That digital warning hung silently in the void until 4:30 in the afternoon. Hitting playback, a wave of denial washed over the exhausted mother Shirley. This was merely a twisted mix-up. Frantic, she cruised the local playground, scoured the campus grounds, and pounded on the front doors of classmates. Zero sightings. Total silence. Panic setting in, she desperately dialed the Westminster authorities. "I can't find my little girl," she stammered to dispatch. "They're saying she never actually showed up for class today." The operator pressed for details. "Age, 10, she replied. "Understood. Can I get a first and last name?" "Jessica Ridgway." It is the ultimate maternal nightmare, a psychological terror that lurks in the shadows of the mind, finally becoming reality. The blood-chilling realization hits that your kid did not merely get lost. Once 9:15 that night rolled around, detectives knew they were staring at something sinister. Someone had taken her. Immediately, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation blasted out a statewide Amber Alert for the missing 10-year-old. Take a hard, close look at the photograph of this child, Jessica Ridgway. She vanished en route to class, triggering an immediate alert to her home. Unfortunately, the nocturnal worker was asleep, causing a devastating delay before she received the terrifying news. This catastrophic lag brings us to the current crisis point. A sprawling, high-stakes manhunt is actively unfolding. Law enforcement, partnered with state investigators, triggered the emergency broadcast protocol. The justification is incredibly grim. A massive, terrifying window of time has lapsed since anyone laid eyes on her. Over 50 sworn agents, backed heavily by federal operatives, are currently sweeping the grid. Kicking off an investigation staring down an 8-hour head start is a detective's absolute worst-case scenario. The geographical radius expands exponentially, meaning she could be absolutely anywhere by now, assuming she was alone. Authorities noted a bitter cross-border custody dispute involving the estranged father. While detectives doubt she is currently in his possession, everyone remains a potential suspect. Officially, there are 0 suspects on the board, forcing investigators to chase down every shadowy lead. Tragedies of this magnitude simply skip this zip code. The sheer shockwave hitting this quiet community is palpable. Judging by the tension in the air, the gravity of this disappearance cannot be overstated. Her routine was flawless. Link up with classmates at a playground roughly 3 streets away, then travel as a pack toward Witt Elementary. Detectives grilled her walking companions. They confirmed her absence, yet being only 10 years old, the naive kids failed to recognize the looming danger. We are flashing her image across the screen again. Age 10, standing 4 feet 10 inches, sporting shoulder-length blonde locks. Her eyes are a striking blue. Reports indicate she left wearing a heavy, black, quilted coat, though the plummeting temperatures remain a fatal threat. The hunt continues, tearing through every corner of Westminster. For locals desperate to join the effort, Command Central has been established down at the Westview Recreation Center. We are posted up right at the crossroads of 108th and Oak. However, daylight had already bled out, leaving behind a bitter, freezing void. An agonizing nocturnal pursuit commenced. Minutes later, The suburb morphed into a militarized zone, battling the pitch-black shadows. Rescue crews hauled out heat-seeking tech, blasting the local park with industrial floodlights that violently bleached the midnight sky. Aviation units prepped an infrared chopper, yet the mercury plunged so violently that freezing rotors threatened to bring the bird down. The airspace was compromised, forcing them to relentlessly pound the pavement instead. Every single available asset is currently deployed on the grid. Command attempted to launch aerial surveillance, utilizing blackout optics. Tragically, severe frost paralyzed the fleet, stripping us of our tactical advantage. First responders stepped up, mobilizing high-grade thermal scopes to cut through the absolute darkness and hunt for heat signatures. A digital dragnet blasted out to more than 400 staff members and the entire parent directory, sounding the alarm on the missing child. Once dawn breaks, the precinct promises a massive surge in boots on the ground to tear the city apart. They are praying the freeze lifts long enough to unleash the grounded tactical choppers over the zone, but law enforcement was not fighting this battle solo. Civilian searchers flooded the staging area in completely unprecedented, staggering waves. Cops and neighbors marched shoulder to shoulder, dissecting private properties, desolate fields, dried ravines, and dense timber probing every conceivable hiding spot. Checkpoints logged photos of every single car slipping through the perimeter, while uniformed guards locked down intersections 24/7. Countless oaks and mail pillars were strangled in purple fabric, a haunting tribute to the little girl's favorite hue. The town refused to be mere spectators. They mobilized into an army. Approaching 2 a.m., dispatch finally ordered the exhausted locals to retreat, recharge, and attack the grid again at first light. Westminster PD was already mobilizing, locking down a makeshift headquarters and calling down the cavalry. The feds took over, backed by 12 separate task forces descending on the area. Before it was over, more than 1,000 investigators would exhaust themselves chasing down 4,000 dead-end leads. Detectives searching her elementary school desk froze when they unearthed her perfectly organized homework planner. Scrawled across a page in a child's script was a chilling personal rule: stay out of the park and avoid strangers completely. This little girl wasn't naive. She was extremely cautious, changing the entire psychological profile of the abduction. The theory that she wandered off with a random pedestrian dissolved instantly, leaving authorities with a terrifying duality. She was either manipulated by a familiar face or ambushed with such brutal speed she couldn't even scream. 4 agonizing days post-abduction, her shattered relatives finally emerged to face the media circus. Paralyzed by grief, they had avoided the spotlight, though they'd quietly handed over genetic swabs to detectives right from the jump. Meanwhile, the Bureau's elite mobile forensic squad was rolling in. Technicians tore through the residence for nearly 2 solid hours that afternoon. They vanished as quickly as they appeared, having breached the property barely 10 minutes after the family evacuated. Federal agents suited up in hazmat gear, scouring every square inch of the property for the faintest trace of the missing child. We are finally hearing from the traumatized parents at the center of this nightmare. Both fiercely maintain their innocence, clinging desperately to the illusion of a safe return. She grounds me completely. She holds this entire family together, her devastated mother pleaded. I just need to hear her voice again. She has to come back to us, her father choked out. I'm fighting to keep the faith, but the agony is unbearable. I just need my little girl found. I literally closed the door behind her as she left, and now I'm just praying she walks right back through it. Despite massive aerial and grid sweeps, the 10-year-old remained a ghost. The horrifying truth was settling in, a dark reality no parent should ever be forced to endure. Detectives officially ruled out the family, pivoting to a much darker hypothesis. A predator was stalking the neighborhood. Then, a breakthrough. A civilian running errands 6.5 miles away stumbled upon a discarded knapsack. Inside were spectacles, a hydration flask, and a torn fabric remnant. Oblivious to the massive manhunt, he uploaded a picture to the web, prompting an eagle-eyed local to dial 911. News of the recovered gear sparked a sudden, dangerous surge of optimism in her mother's heart. It was a deeply fragile delusion, but it fed the narrative that her daughter was still breathing out there somewhere. A weekend discovery in a subdivision 6 miles out gave the desperate relatives a momentary reason to keep believing. I let myself believe that if she were dead, the killer wouldn't have just carelessly tossed her gear in plain sight. That psychological lifeline was completely severed within 24 hours. The next morning, a road crew spotted a strangely heavy trash bag dumped about 6 miles from the family property. Instinct told them not to untie the plastic. They contacted dispatch right away. What detectives found inside shattered the community. Late Wednesday, authorities confirmed recovering a corpse near an Arvada green space. In those initial agonizing hours, brass refused to ID the 10-year-old, though leaks confirmed the worst. Autopsies quickly verified the remains were indeed the missing child. The exact method of execution remained a medical mystery, but the investigation immediately upgraded to a full-blown homicide hunt. A bizarre timber crucifix was also pulled from the dump site. The brass locked down the specifics, but insiders whispered that this token was the key to cracking the killer's profile. The local police chief faced the press, delivering a crushing statement that suffocated the entire metro area. "We are no longer looking for a lost child," he declared grimly. "We are now hunting her murderer. We know a monster is actively walking our streets. Lord, bring solace to this devastated household." A Saturday evening memorial brought flickering flames and somber hymns to honor a brutally shortened youth. The pure evil required for this crime is mind-boggling. Hundreds of shattered locals gathered to mourn her passing. Fellow mothers stood weeping in the crowd, dragged there by terrified kids desperate to pay their respects. We feed our children a beautiful lie about a completely safe world, but reality steals that innocence overnight. Suddenly, you are forced to teach them that the monsters hiding in the shadows are absolutely real. While a shattered town wept for little Jessica, law enforcement aggressively escalated the hunt for her murderer. By that Saturday, desperate detectives were actively grinding out every dark lead. Agents relentlessly scoured predator registries and cross-referenced localized cell tower pings, praying a digital footprint would finally unmask the phantom. Honestly, nobody could begin to comprehend the twisted logic behind this nightmare. The town demanded brutal justice to protect their remaining children. The desperate rescue mission had unfortunately concluded, but the true murder hunt was just igniting. Detectives unearthed a chilling connection that changed everything entirely. 4 months prior on Memorial Day, an unsuspecting jogger was ambushed. A shadow lunged, smothering her face with a chemical-soaked rag. She was violently yanked into the brush, yet managed to viciously fight off her attacker and escape. Her suspect profile was terrifyingly vague. A Caucasian male, roughly 5'6" to 5'8", utterly unremarkable. Authorities dismissed the horrifying assault as a terrifying but completely isolated event. They were dead wrong. That previous ambush occurred mere feet from the exact spot where Jessica was presumably snatched. Crime lab technicians ran the genetic material from both horrific scenes. The biological match was undeniable. One predator, 2 violent strikes, separated by 4 months. Federal Bureau of Investigation personnel issued a stark warning: trust absolutely nobody. Behavioral scientists published a grim suspect profile. The dragnet closed in, yet the phantom remained at large. A suffocating cloud of grief, rage, and pure terror blanketed the quiet streets of Westminster, Colorado. The entire grim situation felt like a waking, inescapable nightmare for everyone involved. A ruthless psychopath was actively hunting. Authorities bluntly confirmed a highly dangerous predator was stalking their neighborhoods. A massive, desperate coalition of local, state, and federal operatives tore the city apart seeking the killer. 500 residences were searched as 500 tips flooded in. A relentless manhunt dominated the region. Retired federal behavioral analyst Clint Van Zandt weighed in on the terror. This suspect operates on an entirely different, incredibly sinister psychological level altogether. Abducting an innocent victim is monstrous enough, but his grotesque method of disposal marks him as an exceptionally rare psychopath. Without a clear suspect name, law enforcement aggressively urged neighbors to watch for sudden, highly suspicious shifts in daily routines. The chilling reality? The killer was likely a familiar face, a trusted friend, a neighbor, or a beloved son. Terrified locals flooded regional therapy centers that weekend, desperately seeking psychological refuge from the ongoing horror. Elite federal profilers issued an urgent, targeted directive to the highly paranoid public. Detectives sought anyone exhibiting strange behavioral shifts following the abduction. Subtle red flags, sudden facial hair removal, unexpected dye jobs. Drastic and uncharacteristic haircuts, wild mood swings, or suddenly hiding a vehicle inside a closed garage instead of the usual driveway. Investigators firmly believed someone close to the monster unknowingly held the vital key to his capture. Officials pleaded for citizens to remain exceptionally vigilant, hoping just one crucial observation would finally crack the grim case wide open. Over 3,000 heartbroken mourners packed an Arvada sanctuary to pay their final tearful respects to Jessica. Her favorite melodies echoed through the somber hall, while a haunting video montage illuminated the screen. A massive sea of purple united hardened cops, frantic searchers, and total strangers touched by her tragic fate. Folks who never even knew her still felt crushed by the dark, suffocating reality of her senseless murder. Shared trauma forged a powerful bond across the shattered city. Then, the explosive, investigative breakthrough finally materialized. Even though the task force members never personally met the innocent victim before tragedy tragically struck, every badge-carrying officer felt her devastating loss, as if their very own flesh and blood had been brutally taken. When authorities leaked a photo of a strange wooden relic recovered near the crime scene, a crucial witness emerged. This informant lived beside the Sig household and instantly recognized the macabre artifact from her neighborhood. Federal agents learned about Austin Sig, a deeply disturbed 17-year-old local boy who possessed an exact visual match to that gruesome evidence. However, that wooden trinket was merely the tip of a much more terrifying psychological iceberg. The witness revealed the teenager harbored a sick, highly disturbing fascination with mortality and the dark mechanics of bodily decay. A monster often hides in plain sight. During interrogation, Austin's pulse never spiked, coldly claiming he slept right through the victim's disappearance. Handing over his DNA without blinking, he unwittingly exposed a chilling clue. Detectives spotted a crucifix identical to their evidence photos dangling from his neck. His alibi appeared bulletproof. Law enforcement bagged the cheek swab, filed it away, and blindly marched on to the next suburban doorstep. Protocol dictated that forensic labs deliver their verdicts inside tamper-proof, sealed packets. A hollow package meant innocence. When his results returned void, the ultimate predator was wiped entirely off their suspect board. Everything shifted on October 22nd. The media exploded with reports tying the little girl's horrific fate to a previous assault on a local runner. Hours later, the teenager complained of severe sickness at school, whispering to peers that a dark, impending dread had taken over. Seeking comfort, he crawled into his mother's room that evening. Come daylight, he warned Mindy a terrible secret was about to spill. Staring into her boy's eyes, she instantly pressed, "Does this involve the missing girl?" She'd later recall a gut-wrenching, inexplicable maternal intuition. The moment he nodded, his mother's world shattered. She dropped to the linoleum, convulsing with tears, paralyzed by a single, repeating nightmare thought. "This is a nightmare. They're locking me up," the boy muttered. Broken, she merely agreed. Begging his mom to notify authorities, he couldn't face the keypad himself. She punched in 911, initiating 18 grueling minutes of pure terror. "Dispatch, this is Molly with Westminster PD. What is your emergency?" "Hello. Please send units to my address. My boy is surrendering for the Ridgeway homicide." What were his exact words, ma'am? He confessed everything, shared the horrific specifics. "Her body parts are hidden inside my home. Have you verified this visually?" "God, no." "Is the suspect currently beside you?" "He's right here." "Is he remaining peaceful?" "Yes, completely." "Can I get your boy's first name?" "It's Austin." "Understood." "Listen, I know you're living a mother's worst nightmare right now, but making this call took incredible bravery. He's the monster. He just needed me to make the connection. He's giving up. All right. Will he stay docile when my uniforms breach the door?" "Without a doubt." "Copy that." "Is there any chance he'll speak with me directly? Will you hand him the receiver?" "Yes. 1 second. Here." "Hello? Am I speaking with Austin?" "That's me. Austin, I'm Molly, dispatching for Westminster law enforcement. Hey, walk me through what's happening in your head right now. What led us to this dark moment?" "Look, I don't understand the pointless interrogation. I'm the one who butchered that little girl." "All right. I have the physical evidence right here. There's no mystery left to solve. Send your cruisers to my location immediately. I'll hand detectives every gruesome detail they crave. Just get your badges out here now." "Okay, son. Is there a hidden trail of other victims?" What I mean is, are there any prior violent offenses hiding in your past? My only other attack was that brutal ambush on the runner over at Kettner Lake. I was the phantom who did that. Mother, are you back on the line? I know you desperately need to dial your husband, but I must keep this channel open until tactical units surround your perimeter. How close is the cavalry? Sirens are just minutes away. Is your son still secured beside you? Uh-huh. Yes. I'm watching his every single move. Understood. Does he possess any documented psychological disorders? Any psychiatric meds or active therapy? We tried a shrink a while back, strictly for severe internet deviance. Got it, my chest is caving in. Inhale slowly, ma'am, keep oxygen flowing. Should I dispatch paramedics for you? Negative. You're absolutely positive? Positive. Hold on, what was that noise? Just cracking some glass open. Repeat that? I threw the sash up. All right, I'm suffocating in here. Stay with me. Mindy, force air into your lungs. You let me know the second those badges hit your porch. Tactical and patrol are approaching your entryway now. All right. My lawn is empty. You have zero visual on the units? Nothing. Is the killer still remaining docile beside you? Yeah, his nerves are completely shot, and honestly, mine are too. Understood. Wait, they are approaching. They are walking up to the front porch right now. Right. All right. Can you spot them? Are those plainclothes detectives with shields visible? Yes, they made it. All right, I am going to disconnect so you can talk to them. Stay safe. Will do. Appreciate it. Take care. Hanging up. Bye. 19 agonizing days after a little girl vanished from her own yard, a phantom stalker casually strolled right through precinct doors. The confession that echoed through that stark interview room will permanently stain the minds of those who heard it. It was not merely the sheer brutality of his words, but the chilling, deadpan way he let them spill. Totally emotionless. He described the horrors like he was reading a grocery list, kicking things off by admitting to the runner ambush. He calmly explained how he stalked the woman from his blind spot, smothering her with a chemically soaked rag. Her narrow escape did not scare him off. It just forced a grim pivot. He admitted that this botched strike completely rewrote his sick blueprint. His new twisted logic demanded a tinier, defenseless target prey that could not possibly fight back against his grip. Detectives pressed him on his ultimate endgame for that fleeing woman, and his lightning-fast reply froze the room. Exactly what happened to the kid, he shot back, before leading them step by step into the dark events of October 5th. So you were essentially out there prowling for prey? Yeah, hunting is the only term that fits. Did you have any connection to her whatsoever? None at all. Ever cross paths previously? The child was simply playing in the winter weather, entirely oblivious to the predator tracking her every move. Stashing his rig in the shadows, he crouched deep into the rear cabin, waiting invisible like a spider as she strolled by. He snatched his window of opportunity. The child shrieked into the void, but the empty streets swallowed her cries whole. He locked her down and sped back to his own residence. He told the cops it was pure chaos, no set location, no schedule, just blind malice. The very instant I dragged her inside my ride, her fate was permanently sealed. Once indoors, he flipped on animated shows to craft a sickeningly false sense of security, promising she would be back in her mother's arms shortly. The petrified 10-year-old just kept begging for his identity, desperately wondering if this stranger was a friend of her family. He spun a web of endless deceit right to her face as she stared at the screen, utterly paralyzed by a terror so deep she lost bodily control. Forcing her into his oversized tee, he began chopping off her locks. Then he delivered the chilling order to face the wall. The ensuing nightmare defies broadcasting standards. That innocent soul was violently extinguished within those very walls. That house became her tomb. The promises of going home or ever sitting in a classroom again were brutally erased. She perished before the Amber Alerts even hit the airwaves. He blamed his monstrous urge on a deeply corrupted mental spiral he had fed for years. Whatever sanitized fiction he tried spinning about those final moments was shattered by the sheer weight of the impending indictments. The digital footprint dragged from his personal hard drive sketched out an unimaginably darker, deeply premeditated conspiracy. Detectives pieced together a landscape of suffering far beyond the watered-down version this cold-blooded killer was willing to put on the record. The subsequent forensic sweep exposed a terrifyingly thorough disposal operation designed to bury the truth forever. Crime scene techs unraveled a highly methodical step-by-step cover-up operation meant to wipe away his grisly sins. These were not the frantic mistakes of an amateur. This was cold, calculating architecture. He eventually pointed them toward a secret crawl space beneath his floorboards, where he had stashed the rest of his grim harvest. The recovery teams pulled the harrowing evidence from that precise subterranean hideaway. Forensics even pulled biological traces from the underground pipes, proving his frantic scrubbing went deep into the home's very infrastructure. Her spark was snuffed out hours before her frantic mother even received the call about an empty desk. But then, a bombshell procedural screw-up threatened to burn the entire case down. An internal audit exposed a mind-bending oversight. His initial genetic swab, the one he arrogantly surrendered early on, had vanished into thin air, completely unprocessed. That hollow packet sitting in the evidence locker was not proof of innocence at all. It was a catastrophic bureaucratic blunder that bought a monster 19 days of freedom. The emergency rush order retest hit with devastating clarity. The genetic profile locked him perfectly to both the botched runner ambush and the missing child's nightmare. Tearing apart his impounded SUV, forensic techs bagged snapped bindings that mirrored his sickeningly detailed confession flawlessly. The trap had violently snapped shut on a predator hiding in plain sight. What if the real monster was hiding in plain sight? To grasp the nightmare that swallowed Jessica Ridgway, you have to look into the abyss of her killer's mind, not to justify the horror, but to uncover the flashing red flags everyone somehow missed, ignored for years until tragedy inevitably struck. Austin Sigg was only 17 when he brutally ended Jessica's life. When detectives finally pinned him down in the interrogation room, they were not staring at a kid who just snapped out of nowhere. They faced a predator who had spent years secretly deteriorating in the shadows, calculating his next move. His folks split up a while back, yet Robert and Mindy seemingly did everything right to keep their boy on track. In 2008, spooked by his weird habits, they dragged him to religious therapy. Austin claimed it was useless. It backfired entirely. The dark impulses festering inside his brain did not fade, they dug their claws in deeper. He admitted to faking normalcy for roughly 4 weeks post-treatment before spiraling down an even darker, more twisted rabbit hole. Come 2009, medical professionals panicked, explicitly warning his dad to pull the plug on the kid's screen time and lock down his devices. Is greater than. Right now, Denver area cops are hauling evidence out of a teenager's house, the suspect currently locked up for snatching and killing 10-year-old Jessica Ridgway. Is greater than. That psychological red flag was raised when Austin was only 14. He later confessed to detectives that his descent into the darkest, most illicit corners of the web started at age 12. The digital poison he binged wasn't merely bad. It morphed into an addictive, blood-soaked online nightmare that he could not pull himself away from. He claimed the urge dragged him under like a black undertow, eventually hijacking his entire psyche. He confessed to the authorities that once therapy wrapped up, his so-called recovery shattered within weeks, opening the floodgates to a malice stronger than ever. Meanwhile, a morbid obsession with mortality festered in plain view. Bystanders definitely saw the signs. An old junior high peer painted him as a brilliant outcast, hiding behind a wall of total isolation. A loner caught whispering to empty air, fumbling through conversations, and radiating a deeply unsettling aura that made your skin crawl. Tormented by peers over his pitch, he ditched normal high school completely, vanishing off the grid to score a GED in secret. Soon after, he hit a nearby campus to dive headfirst into the study of human corpses. His career goal was to make a living entirely surrounded by dead bodies. Knowing the horrific truth of his double life, that little fact sends a massive chill straight down your spine. The forensic shrink who tore through his psychological records didn't mince words. Sure, his upbringing had cracks: the divorce, plus Robert's rap sheet featuring battery, household abuse, and major felonies. Hand-drawn trial portraits show Austin Sigg, a teen brazenly denying he slaughtered 10-year-old Jessica Ridgway, despite already confessing. Is greater than. Look, this initial denial is likely just a strategic legal stalling tactic. While Sigg rejected every single charge, his defense team can always pivot down the line, possibly flipping to an insanity defense. Is greater than There is absolute zero proof that Austin ever suffered trauma or maltreatment growing up. His childhood environment was rocky, but secure. His relatives had his back. He received clinical therapy. Still, absolutely nothing could derail the sinister machinery operating inside his head. The expert's verdict was crystal clear. This wasn't a crime of passion followed by a wave of guilt. He felt zero empathy for little Jessica. Not while taking her life, not ever. This was a cold-blooded execution, orchestrated by a kid who spent seasons rehearsing it in his mind. The state's evidence proved it flawlessly. Austin dug into internet archives to brew the exact chemical agent deployed against a local runner. He actively hunted digital maps to pinpoint blind spots where snatching a victim would be effortless. He obsessed over crime scene science, purposely learning detective tactics to outsmart the police dragnet. He bragged right to the detectives' faces that real serial killers succeed by erasing their tracks completely. A 17-year-old kid said that. Meanwhile, a local resident named Emily revealed a secret that still haunts everyone tracking this investigation. As the kidnapping headlines exploded, Emily's 11-year-old girl walked right up and named the exact monster behind it all. Is greater than. It absolutely crushes me that I just brushed her off. When an 11-year-old pointed the finger at Jessica's abductor, everyone just brushed her off. The kid was frantic, crying out that she had figured out the monster's identity. She named that creepy, dark-clothed kid lingering around the local playground right up the street. This local teen gave off seriously twisted vibes, locking his predatory gaze on her kid from directly across the neighborhood. Emily is convinced, running with a crowd, is the only reason her child escaped a completely unthinkable fate that afternoon. She deeply regrets not validating that terrifying gut feeling the very second her kid sensed pure danger. Looking back, Emily heavily confessed to totally dismissing those glaring red flags right then and there. The second authorities slapped cuffs on Austin. That dismissed warning suddenly echoed like a gunshot. It is profoundly chilling that a mere kid sensed the darkness while grown-ups turned a total blind eye. The true nightmare wasn't simply his actions, but how blatantly obvious the warning signals appeared locally. Peers and locals saw it, yet his twisted escalation remained completely unchecked until October 30th, 2012. Authorities officially indicted Austin as a full adult, leveling 17 total charges that meticulously detailed Jessica's horrific fate, the depraved digital footprint investigators pulled from his electronics, plus allegations from a prior nighttime ambush against a runner. That heavy indictment painted a crystal-clear picture of pure evil. Law enforcement fully grasped the absolute monster they had cornered. Unbelievably, he stood in court and denied every single allegation. This blatant denial completely shocked the public, especially considering his taped admissions, the horrific discovery within his own residence, and the undeniable forensic trail staining his car and property. The mere prospect of an open courtroom dragging every gruesome, agonizing detail regarding Jessica into the spotlight and forcing her grieving loved ones to endure that circus deeply sickened anyone tracking this nightmare from day one. His legal squad immediately pushed a narrative of sudden impulse rather than cold calculation, claiming the suspect remained utterly clueless regarding his own dark motivations. Attorneys desperately highlighted prenatal trauma, a traumatic delivery room experience, and multiple intense medical procedures during his toddler years. They even weaponized his dad's notoriously massive criminal rap sheet. The defense systematically tried painting him as a helpless victim of a deeply broken, uncontrollable environment. The state remained completely stone cold. Hard forensics utterly destroyed that pathetic sob story. Suddenly, on October 1st, 2013, nearly 12 full months since that little girl vanished, and a mere 48 hours before court proceedings began, the suspect abruptly flipped his stance. Completely defying his legal counsel, he boldly rose and admitted guilt across 15 separate counts: calculated homicide, abduction, botched snatchings, horrific violations of the victim, and other atrocities. The justice system would be dangerously naive to blindly guess right now that a youthful offender's catastrophic violence automatically disqualifies them from ever seeing freedom again. To the armchair detectives obsessing over this tragedy, that massive shift finally validated the horrifying truth everybody secretly suspected all along. Come November 19th, 2013, the presiding magistrate handed down 40 hard years inside a local courtroom for the ultimate crime, ruthlessly stacking another 86 consecutive years onto his tab for the remaining atrocities. Since the murderer was technically just 17, specific legal loopholes for minors theoretically applied, but that massive 86-year add-on made parole an absolute mathematical impossibility. He is guaranteed to die in a concrete cage. The chief prosecutor laid it out with zero hesitation. The state brokered absolutely zero backroom deals, handing out no mercy whatsoever. The man holding the gavel echoed that exact same ruthless energy. The architects of our Constitution never drafted a clause suggesting that when a juvenile snatches, plunders, deeply violates, slaughters, and ultimately mutilates a 10-year-old victim, we simply forgive the secondary horrors. The one undeniable fact remains: this individual is a lethal threat. Our society's sole defense mechanism is locking this predator away until his dying breath. Officials had never witnessed such severe depravity from an underage offender. Period. Nothing even comparable has happened locally, statewide, or across the entire nation. The horrific details basically demanded permanent incarceration. The perpetrator faced his absolute ruin in total: eerie silence. Zero apologies. Not a single glance toward the devastated relatives breathing the same courtroom air. A completely dead, vacant stare remained plastered on him while his permanent doom was finalized. I am choosing absolute silence toward him today, simply because this monster hasn't earned the right to hear about the massive void he ripped through my family, or the beautiful soul he stole. The second we cross those double doors, his memory dies with us, leaving nothing behind but the radiant, lasting light our little girl brought into this world. How does a town recover when a monster hunts their children? From that terrifying morning, a powerful legacy emerged, inspiring the Lassie Project. The killer? Shipped to an undisclosed out-of-state facility, not for punishment, but to protect him from prison vengeance. Back in Westminster, loved ones were trapped in a suffocating nightmare, learning to breathe around a wound that refuses to heal. Her mother, Sarah, articulated the sheer horror of the murder, with the crushing gravity of a parent's life sentence. She compared her shattered reality to a smashed plate, knowing one vital fragment vanished into the void forever. "You can frantically glue the shards," she confessed, "but those jagged fractures remain. It's forever broken, despite your desperate efforts." Mindy Sigg, who dialed 911 for an agonizing 18-minute confession surrendering her son, claims zero regret. Never doubting it for a second, she plunged into intensive therapy, desperately trying to construct a functional reality from ashes. Yet, Austin's ghost lingers. She grieves the phantom of the innocent boy she nurtured, the seemingly kind infant, holding false promise. However, total radio silence reigns. Neither mother nor son has initiated a single word since the handcuffs clicked. "I refuse his manipulations," she stated. "I was never handed a motive for this slaughter, and I need that why." Confronted about her message to the victim's shattered family, Mindy fired back without a fraction of a pause. "I would surrender my own pulse to rewrite history. I'd swap graves with that innocent girl in a second." The victim's grandmother responded with chillingly profound empathy that stunned the courtroom. "We recognize she buried her boy too. It's a uniquely twisted bereavement. My soul bleeds for her. Had deputies allowed it, we likely would have embraced her." 5 excruciating years post-tragedy, a sliver of light pierced the gloom. Sarah welcomed a newborn daughter named Anna. Echoes of the slain child saturate the environment. Seas of violet, the lingering phantom of a 10-year-old's innocent grin. Photographs watch from every wall. Her signature hue dominates. The entire family remains draped in violet clothing. It's an inescapable tint. She forces her spirit into the room, Sarah notes, detailing how they keep her memory alive. Her name is never whispered, it's spoken aloud daily. She remains a tangible entity here. Pushing forward is agonizing, hands down the most brutal psychological torture imaginable. I must honor the girl she was, mourn the woman she was robbed of becoming, and forcefully drag myself forward. Anna Christine Ridgway took her first breath on October 15th. The two siblings are bound by an identical middle name, and those piercing blue irises, a distinctly different shade, but undeniable. She's utterly fascinated by her own hands, staring like they hold hidden secrets. Her older sister would have been obsessed. The phantom presence is heavy. When we speak, the baby abruptly shifts focus. It looks like she's communicating with an unseen entity. The spirit definitely crosses over, leaving a faint, shimmering trail behind. Both women plan to reveal this dark history and the bright spirit stolen once the child can comprehend the grim truth. I'll simply explain that a mysterious, older sibling departed this world long before her arrival. Their ultimate mission? Raising this new life untouched by lurking paranoia? I refuse to let that monstrous act eclipse this child's upbringing. Paranoia breeds suffocation, and I absolutely won't cage her. She deserves to carve out her own untainted existence, completely free from the shadows. This isn't a replacement. Our family's love just mutated into something larger and more complex. Without question, she's guarded by a uniquely fierce, unseen protector operating from the other side. Sarah knows the slain girl would have thrived as a sibling. Now, she acts as a silent, spectral guardian, forever lurking. The neighborhood where this tragedy struck refuses to let her memory be swallowed by the suffocating darkness. They erected a defiant memorial playground, a customized 40-foot track, eerie classmate inscriptions, ribbon-strung swings all dripping in vibrant violet. The entire landscape of this park underwent a hauntingly beautiful metamorphosis. No matter where your eyes dart, subtle, chilling echoes of the victim stare right back. From the violent splashes of purple to a peculiar dragonfly seesaw, a nod to the exact assignment she was crafting before vanishing. Then there's the highly effective Lassie project. Birthed from her horrific abduction, this rapid response network triggers neighborhood-wide panic alerts the exact second a kid drops off the radar. A commemorative cheer camp operates today, fueled by a haunting childhood vow. She swore she'd always show mercy to the outcasts. That was her core identity. Right up until the tragic end, she was just an innocent 10-year-old kid, strolling to school on a routine Tuesday, fueled by a granola bar and half an orange, blissfully unaware she was walking into a predator's trap. How does a little girl simply vanish in broad daylight? One split second transformed a seemingly flawless Colorado neighborhood into an absolute nightmare. A few cases haunt our collective memory, not merely for the unspeakable evil, but for the pure innocence stolen. That innocence belonged to Jessica Ridgway. Today, her fiercely devoted community refuses to let the shadows erase her legacy. To support our deep dives into these chilling mysteries, hit that like button and subscribe. Your backing allows us to keep exposing the truth. Sound off in the comments with your location and theories. Stay vigilant and catch us in the next investigation. The story of Danielle Jones is a haunting reminder that the blueprint of a perfect kid can be shattered in an instant by the very people sworn to protect them. This tragedy serves as a visceral lesson in the power of intuition, that gut-wrenching instinct whispering of danger long before a crime is committed. We must learn that silence in the face of predatory behavior is never a sanctuary. It is a lethal trap that allows monsters to hide behind suburban normalcy. Danielle's legacy also offers a revolutionary truth about our digital identity. Her simple, effortless habit of typing only in lowercase became her silent signature from the grave. When her killer attempted to mimic her voice using all caps, his sloppy text habits became the silver bullet that sealed his fate. Never ignore the creeping dread of crossed boundaries, even within your own bloodline. We must honor Danielle by advocating for Helen's Law, ensuring that killers who weaponize silence against grieving families stay locked away. Let us stay vigilant, knowing that even a tiny digital quirk can change the course of justice forever.